Hi everyone, I'm Ben, and this is the Board Game Blueprint. On this week's episode, to kick off the new year, Takashi Sawada of Gumboot Games New Zealand is going to talk to us about his game design journey of his current project, Floating Floors. He's going to go into kind of what instilled or inspired the game, what's informed the game since its creation or inception, and talk a little bit about the future steps for it. So we'll give Takashi the floor and see you at the end of the video. Enjoy.
Hey guys, hey my friend, kia ora whanau. My name's Takashi Sawada and I'm a rookie tabletop game designer based out of New Zealand. I'm here to share with you today about my game, Floating Floors. Thanks to Ben Moy. My name is Takashi Sawada. I'm 27 years old and live in Auckland, New Zealand together with my wife, Itoa, and the two kids. As you can probably tell by my name, I do have Japanese heritage. My dad is Japanese, my mum is Kiwi. I'd say that it's my interest in my Japanese heritage that helped, introduce me to the idea of exploring topics of interest through board games and helped motivate the creation of my very first game. I've always had a yearning to try and connect with my Japanese heritage, which I felt somewhat disconnected from. To help retain the connection that I do have, beyond blood ties obviously, I've done things like take Japanese class in high school, I've read literature about Japan, and have immersed myself in its culture with any opportunity that came by. While my dad has never really shared with us much about Japan, I would say that it was partly through him and his love for Axis and Allies Pacific that I stepped into a world of exploring topics of interest through what we know as modern board games. A piece of literature that was written by an Australian author who goes by the name Leanne Hearn was a coming-of-age story exploring the dynamics between clans in a fictional depiction of Japan during its feudal period. The story, Across a Nightingale Floor, had at its setting the Nightingale floors of a Japanese castle, or uguiswari, that the protagonist, Takeo, had to cross to complete his mission. The story had me hooked, and I was inarguably obsessed at that point with Japan and its history. I began engrossing myself in anything that would help illustrate the experience of feudal Japan in my mind and stumbled upon a PlayStation 2 game, which was a strategy game based in feudal Japan. I played it and conquered. The marketing must have been spot on because after completing the game, I hungered for more. I started asking questions like, what if this happened? Or what if that happened? Or I wonder what it would feel like to compete against real people with massively scaled samurai armies all surging on one goal. Not that that's not reality these days. This led to the birth of my first game, Isen Advance on Kinai. Life unfolded with work, travel, a short-lived career as a dive instructor, marriage, and family. I'm now lucky enough to have been a stay-at-home dad to my kids for 5 years, while my wife has sustained us. In the early stages of stay-at-home parenting, one day I noticed my game, Isen, up there on the shelf. Yes, I quite literally shelved it for the past 8 years leading up to this point. My daughter had just gone to sleep, and I decided to give myself a little bit of much-deserved me time, set aside the chores, and give the game a whirl. I was hooked. Again. Long story short though, the game was shelved yet again. This time, however, was to make way for a project that, if complete, would help me live out a dream. That and my game idea was fun, but its fan base was probably limited to my dad, my brother, and myself, if that. As I mentioned earlier, some of my initial intrigue into the topic of feudal Japan stemmed from my fascination of the world Leanne Hearn had created in her book series Tales of the Otori. I remember the excitement I had when I saw that a film studio had acquired the rights to produce the book series into a film series, a movie series. I would even go so far as to say that I subscribed to several blogs for updates on this project. My curiosity and excitement helped me retain my unquenchable thirst for all things Japanese. Fast forward to recent years, I discovered that the plan to produce a film out of the book was dropped. I was disappointed to say the least. But at the same time, I still had a thirst for more of the world that was created in my mind, reading through those books, I saw that several others who were also following these blogs seemed to be going through a similar experience as well. With that in mind, I decided that I wanted to develop a game that would provide this movement of Atori fans with an experience that would help them relive the world of Ninja and Nightingale Floors, a relatively unexplored subject of feudal Japan. I wanted to use a tabletop game to facilitate the experience, as I feel that tabletop games not only have a capacity to bring people from any background around the same table together in a very real way, but I also believed it would, and still is, the best way to help people connect with the world I was wanting to deliver. This became the scope of Floating Floors. Floating Floors started as another game that had the placeholder title Nightingale Ninja. The scope for Nightingale Ninja was to put you in the roles of both the architect, of the one designing and building a Japanese castle, and a ninja with a mission to infiltrate a rival's castle, crossing the Nightingale Floors to reach the target. I want to provide you with the experience of crossing the Nightingale Floors that are created by other players without dividing people up into the roles, into the static roles of Dungeon Master and the heroes. I wanted you to get both sides of the experience in a single setting. Delivering the experience of crossing Nightingale Floors to the world has always been more than a project to me. It's a mission, a commitment, a dream that I want substantiated. And with your help, we'll make that happen. I passionately invest any time I have into this project, which means all other ideas of games that have come to mind haven't left the notepad on my phone yet. Through some interaction I've had with the Board Game Design Lab community, among others, Nightingale Ninja was iterated to the point that the core mechanics of the game had completely flipped on its head, turning it into an entirely different game experience, which you now know as Floating Floors. What I liked about Nightingale Ninja was that it simulated the experience of you, the ninja, having to memorize where traps have been laid, as well as take chances and calculated risks, traversing the Nightingale Floors of a 3-tiered Japanese castle. It also encouraged you to use the scenery to your advantage by blending into it and manipulating the sentry guards with ninjutsu. While Nightingale Ninja had you thinking like a ninja, a big aspect of the scope of the project was still missing in the experience. When you think of ninja, it's not only disappearing acts and murderous intent that comes to mind, right? But it's also their superhuman abilities and physique. Also, the audible experience of Nightingale Floors was missing in the game. Incorporating these things has been a process of creating dozens of doodles and prototypes. Ultimately, this led Nightingale Ninja to evolve into Floating Floors. The game has gone from being a dungeon crawler medium-weighted strategy game to more of an abstract strategy dexterity game, but the scope does remain the same. Floating Floors is a duel between rival ninja clans, where you'll be balancing your ninja on top of tiles that balance on top of jutsu, whilst planning a path to safely reach your target. Your objective? Be the first ninja to reach your rival's starting location or their base, by safely crossing the floating floor that both you and your rival build. You may only move your ninja across onto floor spaces with your color. The catch is that both you and your rival are responsible for constructing a map made up of tiles with both of your colors. The tiles placed can be strategically assembled with the placement of jutsu that hold them up from underneath, in a way to grant you safe passage and sabotage your rival at the same time. If you cause a tile to touch the ground, or you let your ninja fall over, you are penalized and your rival is given an advantage. What you create with your rival is a beautiful example of organized chaos. The nature of the dexterity in the game literally gets you up on your feet and pacing your way around the table and the grid as you try to plan the swiftest path to your target and place yourself at the best possible vantage points. Beyond the time constraints that being a stay-at-home parent entails, there are other challenges. The iteration of floating floors must hurdle or work its way around to get to a point where I feel I can share the game with the world. A challenge that I'm currently faced with is integrating the audible experience of creaking Nightingale floors into the game. This challenge has also been a blessing in that I feel it's stimulated a lot of collaborative, constructive thinking among friends, family, fans, as well as among other designers. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for so charitably offering your time and ideas towards making Floors the game that it is today. I feel as though the experience that playing Floating Floors provides has organically become almost like a metaphor for the experience around creating the game, with the excitement generated by such a supportive community. Additionally, I would love to create the opportunity to playtest Floating Floors using different shapes other than cubes, like a pyramid-shaped D4, a D6, or maybe even like a D10, as jutsu with a fixed amount of jutsu being allocated to players each turn. At this point, I'm thinking 3, but stay tuned for that. I think this would simulate the experience of using a multitude of different ninja equipment for different purposes and scenarios nicely. I'm currently in the process of trying this by handcrafting the pieces out of polymer clay, though it will be an extensive project with time and resources. Honestly, if you can think of any other ideas, I'm all ears. Addressing the audibility issue with Nightingale Floors has produced a wealth of ideas that has been suggested by ingenious minds for feasible solutions. The next steps for Floating Floors is getting more of these ideas to the table. Artwork, refining the look of the components, setting up an email list, and getting an easy to distribute print and play version ready for some beta play testing. These are all some of the next steps that I'm considering. If you're interested in finding out more about Floating Floors or would like to support this project in some way, please like our Gumboot Games New Zealand Facebook page. QR code right there. I don't know if it's going to zoom in there, but I'm sure it's going to be provided in the comments. Cheers, Ben. For more great content on up-and-coming games, show your friend, Ben Moy, some love and subscribe to his channel. Be sure to share it as well. Thanks again for your interest and continued support for the iteration of Floating Floors. I look forward to seeing what you and I can accomplish with this game. Cheers, everyone.
My favorite thing about Takashi is not only how he's able to infuse so much into his design, his efforts, his passion, and also a little bit of history, but that he's able to juggle it along with all of his other responsibilities. As we saw, he's a father, and while he's got all these other priorities going on, he's still making time for design, which I think a lot of us can relate to. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for future content like this. As always, I'm Ben. This has been another episode of the Board Game Blueprint, and together, let's build something great.
3, 2, 1. Wait, what? Action.